Hey Grandma, how's it going? Hey, I saw the video you sent me, and as I was watching it, I had a lot of thoughts, and I typed some of them up, but then I thought, oh, it'll probably just be easier to make a video since I do this for school a lot now, so I'm kind of in the video making business. Um, Before I start, the first thing is that I'm not necessarily trying to like change your mind about anything because I'm not an expert about vaccines. That's not what I study. And so I'm not really going to focus that much on the information, though there's a couple things that I researched that I just to kind of show, I don't know, how I research things. But mostly I just wanted to kind of talk about like, I don't know, when you're looking at this, like, is it how do you know? How do you know what to trust or what not to trust? How do you know what you think? So I'm going to kind of show you, I guess, my thoughts just as I watched it and some of the stuff that stuck out to me. And I'll start, I guess, with some of the maybe the less meaningful stuff, and then jump into the stuff that matters more. So my first thought, looking at this website, it reminds me very much of like an infomercial, and that applies to like the videos as well. Like it just reminded me a lot of like the like infomercials on television, and especially like this like 60%. Like you'll notice up here, this it has this banner at the top, and it like has like a shiny thing that goes across it to catch your attention. And then it has like buy one get one free, and then it has this up to 60% off, and it's like jumping out at me. And then for some reason, I don't know why, like the sale ends in 4 hours and 46 minutes. And I thought that was weird that like it's like very much high pressure tactics. And it's clear this is like a product, which is fine. Like this is America, you're allowed to sell products. There's nothing wrong with that. But just from the website, it's clear like this is a product. They want me to buy it, and they're using high pressure tactics to sell it to me, like having like really jumpy graphics and like a countdown, like you better buy it fast. You only have 4 hours and 45 minutes and 51 seconds left before like your 60% off buy one get one free sale ends. And so right from the beginning, like maybe that makes me more defensive because it kind of just reminds me of like somebody trying to sell me something. That doesn't mean that it's not true. It just means that they want me to buy something, which is, like I said, we're America. It's okay to sell stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But it just a lot of like the buy one get one free and sell stuff like reminded me of an infomercial. Okay, let's go. We can move on with that. Jumping down, the next thing I noticed is kind of their whole beginning statement of, oh, maybe it's not on this one, but they have one that says like, we're not here to tell you which way to think. We're just presenting both sides of the story. And I don't think that's honest. I think it's pretty clear that they are mostly against vaccination, and most of the information they're presenting is critical of vaccines, which is fine. I just wish they would say, hey, this is a documentary that's critical about vaccines, that is believes vaccines are harmful, because that's their position. And I just wish they more clearly stated that position. But I wish I could find it, because it really said like, we're here to show you experts on both sides and present a clear picture. And like, that's not what they're doing. That's okay. Like, if I go to the WHO, they're not presenting an unbiased opinion. They are promoting vaccines, but they'll be honest that they're promoting vaccines. I just wish they were more honest about what their position was. But I think that's more to, they're afraid that if they said that right at the beginning, that some people would be turned off by it. And so I think by saying, hey, we're just here to present both sides, they're hoping to that more people be more open-minded instead of shutting down to it. But I feel like that kind of makes them not necessarily state their position totally up front. And then the last thing on this page, and then we'll get to the actual video, really get into it, is like who their experts are. They're 54 unedited experts. So this one, she's a mother of a vaccine injured child. I don't know that that's like an expert on something. Like, my dad has diabetes. I'm not an expert on diabetes. I don't know anything about it. I didn't go to school to learn about it. Like, and anyway, so a lot of these, like a founder of Vaccine Choice Canada, like anybody can found anything. That doesn't make you an expert. This guy is a practitioner of classical homeopathy. And haven't even read these beforehand, most of these. Homeopathy is the belief that if you take something and you dilute it, the more times you dilute it, the more effective it is. So it'd be like, oh, let's take, if somebody got poisoned, let's get the poison that made them sick, and then let's dilute it and give it to them back and we'll heal them. And the more times we dilute it, the more effective it will be. And so they'll dilute something until literally there is not a single atom of it left in the solution. It's just water. That's what homeopathy is giving people water and saying it's a cure. I don't know how that makes him an expert on vaccines because he practices homeopathy and he's an author. Neither one of those, I'm guessing that like being an author, anybody can be an author. You're allowed to write a book. And I'm guessing there's not a licensing for a practitioner of classical homeopathy, but they're telling you he's an expert. They're telling you that he's a credible source of information about vaccination. All right, this guy's an author. Once again, anybody can be an author. This person's a cinematographer and a parent. I'm a parent, going to be a parent. I don't think that's going to make me an expert on vaccines. This person is a board certified oncologist. I would say that there may be actually someone that would have a valuable information. These people are activists. That's not an expert. This guy's a physician, a surgeon, and a scientist. That I would say maybe he is an expert. Okay. So some of these people actually have certifications and licensing and career experience that makes them qualified to speak on this issue, but a lot of them don't. So like this guy founded a website. My brother Pat founded a website. It's called patrickingberson.com. This lady, so a lot of things like, oh, he's a radio host. Radio host doesn't make you an expert on vaccines. He's an author. Like he's an activist. He's like, so a lot of these, so I'll tell you, like coming into this, I have my guard up, which maybe will bias what I think it'll maybe make me more resistant and less open-minded. But that's why I have my guard up, is because a lot of these people are speaking as experts on vaccines when they're not licensed, they're not certified, they haven't gone to school, which might, I guess, sound like elitist. But to me, it's like they're speaking on an issue and they should have, like, you could be an author, but okay, what have you done that makes you a qualified author? This guy is the one I might talk about the most in the video because he's featured in it. Del Bigtree. He's the former producer of an award-winning talk show, which I don't know why that would make him an expert on vaccines. Though I guess, he's part of the media, so that's good, I guess. So anyway, some of these are doctors. Most of the ones that are doctors, like they're not researchers. They don't do professional research. They just are doctors and they don't like certain treatments. That doesn't necessarily make them, but I would say they're definitely more probably reliable than somebody that's like an activist. Like I don't see how anybody can, like I can put activist on my resume and, or lecturer or independent. I saw one that's like independent investigator, which to me is like the most made up one. It's like independent just means you decided on your own. And like, to me, that just doesn't mean anything. Okay. But that's not to say that right away they don't have anything meaningful to say. It just says like why I'm going to kind of take some of what they say with a grain of salt, or want to like really make sure I double check it. Like if they say something, I don't know if it's true or false. Yeah. Sorry. But anyway, sorry, I got caught off guard. Amanda was showing me something. But it just means, I better, like if a parent says something, that's cool because that's from their experience. I probably should double check it somewhere else just to make sure. Okay, this is going on really long. Let's get into the video, and I might edit some of this down later on. So as I was watching the video, I was kind of keeping track of some of, I think, the strategies they're using to make you trust what they're saying. Okay. And I'll send you this document too, so you could go through it on your own if you don't want to watch me go through it all. The first one, so these are, like I said, I'm not going to focus mostly on the information because I'm not an expert on it. And I don't know. I'm going to focus on, I think, like, are they using good strategies for sharing information? All right. The first strategy I'm going to focus on, they use emotionally charged language and like pictures and music. And I think they do that because they want an emotional response from you. They're not, through this, I don't think they're trying to engage you mentally. I don't think they're trying to get you critically thinking based on what I saw. I think they're really wanting to engage you emotionally and give you an emotional response. And the first one is right in the name, the truth about vaccines. And this to me is like an obvious trick that still works. So I had and that's like, well, it's in the name, so I don't have to show it to you, but I had in high school, we did a fundraisers and we sold cookie dough, and the guy gave me, I think, some of the best advice, like as far as sales I've ever gotten. He said, never ask somebody, do you want to buy cookies? Because it's easy for them to say, nah, I don't want to buy cookies. I don't like cookies, or I already make my own cookies, or I get cookies somewhere else, or whatever, or I'm on a diet or whatever. He said, always ask people like, are you willing to help me? Would you help me go on my band trip? Would you help me be in the, like, go to school or whatever it was you were raising money for? And he's like, people can't say, no, I don't want to help you. Right? And they know what you're doing. When you go up to somebody and say, will you help me? They know you're using that trick, but it still works. And the trick here is to say the truth. Here's the thing, saying the truth doesn't mean you have the truth. It doesn't mean you're saying the truth. It doesn't obligate you to tell the truth. It's just, it's only a way to make people trust you. That's the only reason to say it. When I say something, I don't say this is the truth, because I assume, and I know other people assume, that I would not say something unless it was true. So by saying the truth, the first thing is they're hoping you'll put your guard down and you'll be more open, because you'll think, well, they said it's the truth, so why would they lie to me? And it seems like simple, like, well, I wouldn't fall for that. But it's not about saying, oh, okay, I'm going to believe every single thing they say now. It's just subconsciously you're lowering your guard a little bit. And the other thing is that when they say the truth, especially if you are already prone to disbelieve the government or the media or scientists or some group, it plays into that belief. And there's kind of this, if they say the truth about vaccines, they're planting a little seed in your brain that says, the truth? I thought I already knew the truth. There must be a lie. Somebody else must have told me not the truth. And they're already kind of poisoning what you think you already know. They're trying to like put that seed of doubt in your mind so that you'll be more receptive to what they have to say. Okay, and that is language that would not be used like in any professional or scientific or objective information. Like when you open any, like if you tried to write a research paper that said the truth about whatever it was, if I tried to write a research paper that was the truth about minerals, they would say, just call it minerals, or call it how minerals form. You know what I mean? Like to say the truth of it, it adds no information. It's only to get an emotional response. It doesn't mean you're lying. I can say this is the truth about something and then tell the truth about it, but still the only reason I would say the truth is to try and gain your trust. So that doesn't make them lying. It does mean they're trying to open you up and make you more open-minded. Okay. All right. The other emotional things they use is the opening quote, and I'm going to go and play it, because to me it's kind of it's a hint right from the start of that, like they are playing an emotional, like they're wanting to engage you emotionally.
See, is there any comment on using to make sure that vaccines can do what they do best, prevent disease?
And by the way, this video might end up being pretty long just because of the video clips and stuff and me talking so much. You don't have to watch this if you don't want to. I don't want, like, if this is boring or whatever, or don't feel like you have to watch this. Okay, this is the very first thing. This is the very, very opening to the whole video. And I think they do this in all their videos, but I've only seen a couple, so I'm not sure. All right. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. And I think other ones, they would start with like almost like things from the founding fathers about freedom and tyranny and stuff. That has nothing to do with vaccines. It has nothing to do with safety. It has nothing to do with medicine. They are wanting to connect with you emotionally. And they're trying to do the same thing of, just like if you say, well, this is the truth, and you'll believe them. Now, if they're saying like, you can't silence us, like they're trying to get you to buy into emotionally what they're saying. Okay. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying it shows that they do have, like, when they're saying we're just trying to present clear information, no, they're trying to make a specific argument, and they should be more straightforward about that. They shouldn't say like we're just being fair and showing both sides if that's not their goal. Anyway, and I find these, I don't know, to me, this is like a little heavy-handed and manipulative. Like, it just kind of, I don't like it because you could say anything after this, like silence in the face of evil is evil, so I need to stand up against vaccines, or like you could say, you could follow this with any statement you wanted about anything. It doesn't mean you're telling the truth or what you have to say is honest. And it's kind of a way of trying to say like, well, anyway, so I just think that it just shows they're really wanting that emotional response from you, and they're kind of wanting to connect you with like, oh, they like I believe in freedom. I don't like tyranny, and they're giving me quotes about how freedom's important from the founding fathers, and I respect the founding fathers, so they must be telling the truth because I mean they wouldn't use the founding fathers if they were going to lie to me. And it's not like that. It's not that anybody's that dumb to believe that. It's just like subconsciously, it's like these little tricks that are they're trying to gain your trust. And it's and knowing they're doing it, just like when somebody says, will you help me with my fund? Will you help me, go on the band trip? It doesn't mean they're stupid. It just means those tricks work just because that's the way our brains are designed to work. Okay. And then the next use of emotion is, I'm just going to play it. It's at 23 minutes and 35 seconds, but it just goes back again to show me like they're really wanting the emotion. And to me, like we're not good at engaging emotionally and like engaging mentally at the same time on a critical level. So it's just showing like it's not that they're wanting you to really think deeply about these. They're trying to get that emotional response and they're going to jump to the next thing. So here's the clip that was making me, that really stuck out. But there was a lot more than just this one. There's just one that stuck out the most.
Cannot tell them what the risk is.
So we've got like sad music.
All of the vaccines on the schedule.
They've got these scenes of a mom looking at her baby. She looks concerned. This sweet little cute baby. And it's just like, this isn't from his speech. This isn't from the rally they did. They just said, oh, let's get some footage of a concerned mother and her baby and let's put it over this because, wow, people are real. I mean, everybody loves to see a baby. And it might be like, I'm not silly enough to fall for that, but they think you are because they're putting it in the video. Like the fact that you might think like, and this is, and I don't mean you by you, I just mean you by anybody. Because I would think, oh, I'm not going to fall for that. I mean, that's just a silly trick. Like just put in a cute baby and a sad looking mom and some sad piano music. Like I'm not going to fall for that. Whether or not you buy into it, they put it in there, and they put it in there because they want that emotional response. Whether or not it works, that's what they're going for. And then finally, and this is my last one, and this runs throughout it over and over and over and over again, is the use of emotionally kind of laden words. Okay. So a big one, and this is, I see it so much. Number one, I think this is the most commonly used right now in our society the word natural. Because when somebody says natural, they want you to think safe. And so they'll use natural when they know they can't necessarily say safe, but they want you to think safe. And we see it all the time, like natural food. All food is natural. Like there's not unnatural corn. Like all corn is grown on a plant. But if they say it's natural corn, even though that is just normal corn, you'll pay more money for it. Or if they say, oh, this fabric is all natural cotton, that's the same as regular cotton. It just costs more. And so we see that all the time if you go to Whole Foods, I mean, you're just going to pay twice as much for stuff because it says natural at the beginning. And you think natural means healthy. You think, and I don't mean you, I just mean us as a society, that natural means safe, that natural means normal, that natural means the way it's supposed to be and has always been. And natural is like it's full of all these other associations. Okay. And the biggest one I see, I'm going to go to it because it kind of blew me away when I heard it. He's talking about how it's good to get these illnesses, which by the way is a big claim to make.
Have measles as children and choose lymphoma. And if a woman had measles and mumps as a child, her risk of ovarian cancer is cut in half. We're talking right there, simply by having these natural infections.
These natural infections. He's trying to claim that diseases are good because they're natural. But ovarian cancer is natural, so we're just preventing natural ovarian cancer instead of natural measles. And what about natural cancer? And what about natural AIDS? And what about natural gonorrhea and natural chlamydia and natural syphilis and natural, and a bear comes out of the forest and disembowels me and eats me? That's natural. And a snake's venom is natural. And he's using the word natural to mean safe, and he's to the point that he's calling diseases healthy. That he doesn't say healthy diseases, because that would be an oxymoron and it might spark your brain to go, healthy diseases, what? But he's sneaking it in by using the word natural infections. These natural infections. And he picked the word natural on purpose because he knows, and it is natural, like diseases are natural. That doesn't mean they're good. There's lots of natural stuff that's bad. And so anyway, but all throughout it, they use words like toxic and toxins and natural, words that have these fuzzy meanings so that they can't necessarily be pinned down to just one thing, but they're looking for that emotional response. Okay. Another example of that is they'd say closed door meetings. In these closed door meetings, I mean, the meetings were filmed and given to the public. They're not secretive. It's just that a group meets, and I guess you could call it's just a way of calling a meeting a closed door meeting. I mean, that's like I could call my school's faculty meeting like those teachers all got together at their closed door meeting. Well, yeah, we met as a faculty, and it doesn't mean it's a secret. So but they use these kind of words that by themselves don't have meanings, but they're trying to get that emotional reaction. Okay, that's everything for the emotional reaction stuff. Okay. So let's jump up to the next thing. And this is where I think we get more to, because you can do all of that and be telling the truth. You can, I mean, that's like what activism is. So like you can look at any activism, whether it's good or bad or the right side or the wrong side or neutral or whatever, and they're going to use those tactics. They want to make an emotional connection with you. Just like the salesman. I wasn't evil when I went around and said, will you help me with my fundraiser? I just was using a tactic. It didn't make it bad. So now I want to get into actually the more substantive information stuff. Okay. All right. By the way, earlier I said the video should be more honest about like the approach they're taking. So I hope I've been honest with the approach I'm taking. Like I don't trust this website or these videos, but I am trying to look at it and actually analyze it and not just dismiss it. Okay. All right. This, I think, as far as information goes, like just direct communicating information, I think this is the biggest sin. Okay. Just the number one huge problem. Okay. Making claims, big, major, giant claims without using any data or any sources. And they use a lot of wiggle words to earn your trust without actually backing them up. So 2614, let's go. It's this Del Bigtree. He is like the star of the show for me. He really stood out. Okay.
Illness that it's pretending to prevent.
There are already studies they're showing all around the world that people who have...
All right, studies. There are already studies showing all around the world.
Measles as children. Let me say this the right way. People who...
And we're going to come back to the next part. But basically he says that having measles, well, he doesn't say having measles decreases your chance of these things. He kind of wiggle words through it, but we'll come back to that. But here's the thing. He says many studies, lots of studies all around the world. He never says what studies. He doesn't give a name. He doesn't give a website. He doesn't give a title. He doesn't give a doctor. He doesn't give a facility. He doesn't say who did the studies. He says all around the world. What does that mean? What countries? Was it in the United States? Was it in China? Was it in Russia? Was it in France? He's all around the world. What does that mean? And so, and then I thought, well, maybe at the end of the video, they'll show their sources, but they didn't. Maybe they send them somewhere else, but not here where they're telling me the information. And that to me is a big deal to say, like you can't do that in school. You can't say many sources. Like you have to say the source, and it's obvious why, because otherwise anybody could just say whatever they want. And I went and I looked for those studies. So I went to Google and I typed in like study measles cancer, study measles Hodgkin's lymphoma, study measles vaccine, non-Hodgkin's all these things, and I could not find the studies. And they might exist, but I don't know because he wouldn't tell me what they were. And that's frustrating to me because if what you're saying is true, you should be giving me the information to show me that it's true. Otherwise, like, why would you not give me that information? So I found that frustrating. And that gets repeated at 28:14. They say the same thing when it cuts back to the main two people.
Is absolutely correct. Studies are showing
They don't, like, they could just put it on the screen. They could give me a little title of the name of the study, but they don't. They say studies are showing
that natural exposure to measles and mumps and other childhood diseases like chickenpox confers protection from.
And same thing, I went and looked at the words that they were saying and tried to find those studies to try and show that what they were saying was true. And I couldn't find the studies. And they might exist, but I don't know because they didn't tell me. And that should be they should be telling me where to go find that information. Okay? So anytime, and it's not just them, like if the WHO did that or if anybody else did that, I would ask the same question. I'd ask, what if you're going to say studies, you got to show me the studies. You got to show me that information. That's one thing. I have a video I linked down at the bottom. I'll show it to you real quick. About vaccines. And it's about some of the risks and side effects of vaccines.
Vaccines are celebrated for their
what I
part
like
in
about
fighting
this
disease,
video series,
but a growing group of people
sorry, my computer's
seem
being slow.
to believe that they endanger our.
What I like about it is that they'll link you to their sources. So when they say studies show, they back it up. They show me the studies, and I could go double check all the information that they told me. And they do that because they have that information. Like, they're not afraid to back up what they say. And so you can go back through here and they're going to link just study after study after study that talks about that information. So when they say something like how many people vaccines kill, they can tell me where that information is. So I could go check it and see if it's true. And I would encourage you to do that. I try and do that a lot. Anytime somebody says studies show, I've tried to train myself to always double check it, because it's kind of like one of those words like I'm telling the truth. You're allowed to lie after that. And you could say studies show and lie. Nobody's going to stop you. So I try and always double check at least a few things to at least say, well, when you say that, I should make sure there's something to back it up. And you could go down this list. If you want to go look at that video, it's a really good one. But they show their sources. They show where they're getting that information. Okay. And that happens over and over and over and over in these videos. They'll make a claim about the connection between, vaccines and all these different diseases. And they'll say studies show and studies show. And they'll even show the graph, but it doesn't actually say, like, it's just a graph, like the one where it's saying it goes up by 66% and it shows a line. And that's to make you think that there's data there, but they don't actually show you the data. They just show you a line with an arrow because you think, well, that looks like a graph. And so there must be real data. Okay. That to me is big. It's really, really big. And I won't go through all the examples, but it's throughout it. Throughout it, they make claims without sources. Like, and there's no point, like at the end of the video, they don't have like a sources page. There's never, unless it's like you got to pay for it, I guess, for the sources, which would be weird. They like, that's just over and over. They don't back up what their claims are, which in like the world of actual academia would be like, you wouldn't even be like, you wouldn't speak. Like, nobody, if you said, here's all my information, they said, where are the sources? And you said, I don't have them. They'd say, come back later, Okay. So that one's just so big that it's almost by itself. Wow. Okay. The next strategy they use is they don't use a lot of numbers and statistics. So they'll make claims about diseases and all these things. And sometimes, and most of the time, they won't use any numbers. And when they do use the numbers, they're used very loosey-goosey. Very, very loosey-goosey. Okay. The first one is he talks about how, let's go show it. And I want you to pay attention to the words he uses, because even he has to catch himself, because he knows he has to say it a specific way.
And the illness that it's pretending to prevent. prevent.
There are already studies they're showing all around the world that
Once again, doesn't say what studies. They're all around the world, doesn't say where.
people who have measles as children, let me say this the right way.
Let me say this the right way. He was going to say people that have measles, but he changes it because I think that might not actually be true. So he has to change what he was going to say.
People who did not have measles as children and were vaccinated for measles, they have a 67% increased risk of developing non-Hodgkin's.
By the way, they have arrows with lines. They have lines with arrows. That's not an actual graph. I mean, that's I guess if you didn't know that an increase goes up. But they like, why don't you show me an actual graph comparing these rates? Like this is not an actual graph. It's a cartoon of what a graph might look like, I guess.
Lymphoma. They have a 333% increased risk of developing Hodgkin's lymphoma.
So I want you to pay attention to what he said. He said, let me say this the right way. People who did not have measles as children and were vaccinated for measles had a 60. Here's what I'm not sure about. Is he saying people who did not have measles but got vaccinated compared with people who did not have measles and did not get vaccinated? Does he mean compared with people who did not get vaccinated and did get measles? Does he mean compared with people that got like he uses a number, but without that context, it doesn't mean anything. It's I don't know how to interpret that. And here's the cool thing. I could go look at the source and see the data for myself and figure out what exactly that means to clarify it. Except once again, they never provide any sources for their claims or the data behind it. And so for that, like that number sounds bad. Wow, 67% increase compared to what? It's not clear who he's comparing that to. And that comparison is really important. Once again, I tried to find studies, and the studies I found actually all seem to point in the opposite direction. That measles is considered protective. Sorry, that the vaccine is considered protective against those diseases. And so it's hard to know what he means because that statement just by itself might be true, but in context, it might be really, really misleading. But I don't know because it's used so loosey-goosey. Okay. And it's the same thing with like, he talks about ovarian cancer, and I tried to find that study and I couldn't find it. Okay. And where I could find studies that seemed to go in the opposite direction of what he was saying. Okay. And this one's even worse as far as misusing numbers. And I think this one is so obvious. Like I think a high school student who's taken statistics would see this one in a second. So they're talking about studies and heart attacks from these vaccines.
2020. What did he mean by the myocardial infarction issue?
I like this one, by the way. Simply put, myocardial infarction is fancy doctor speak. I don't know if they're just trying to be kind of funny or if they're trying to like kind of have a disdain for doctors, and so they're trying to play it that way. I just found it funny that they said it. Maybe they're just kind of being silly with that. Okay, but here, I want you to focus on the numbers here.
That's doctor speak for heart attack, by the way. There had been 14 heart attacks in the first trial group. This vaccine...
Okay, there were 14 heart attacks in the trial group. Is that good? Is that bad? Is that the same as normal? They do not tell us what would be the most obvious other piece of information needed here. What was the size of the trial group? And there'd be other information that'd be good to have, like the normal rate of heart attacks in the population and the age of the population that they were studying. I mean, all sorts of things. But by itself, one number does not mean anything. That just doesn't, that would mean if I said there were 14 robberies in Midvale last year, and that would sound really bad, but maybe that was the lowest it's ever been in history. You know, by itself, and I'm not saying it's not even deceptive. It's too meaningless to be deceptive. It's literally a number with no meaning, with no context. Because let's say the sample group was 100. 14 seems high. I don't know for sure. I'd have to find the normal rate, but that would seem really high. What if the sample group was 50,000 people? Then 14 would be extremely low. I bet the sample group wasn't that big because that'd be really low. What if it was 1,000 people and the normal rate of heart attacks is 14, and so there are 14 of the heart attacks, but that was equal to the number that would be expected anyway, unrelated to the vaccine? What if it's usually 7 out of 1,000 and this is double, and that's really, really bad, and we should know that? The fact they don't provide that information makes me suspicious of this number. Maybe this is really bad, but I think they would probably give me more context to show me that. Here's the cool thing. I can go find the study and I can see the actual number and give it some context. Oh, wait, no, I can't, because they don't tell me what study that is or where to find it or give me any other information. So once again, they make a claim. Here, they don't even give the claim context enough to know what it means, and then they don't provide me information to follow it up. You can tell at this point, I'm getting worked up about how little information they're presenting. And it doesn't seem straightforward to me. So either they're just doing a bad job or they're trying to make it seem bad instead of giving me the full context. Okay. Oh boy, this is getting really long. And so these ones I'm just going to jump short on. They do a thing where they'll take one little snippet, and this is called the straw man argument. It means instead of arguing against the actual argument, I'm going to argue against what I want to argue against. I'm going to make a simplified, dumb version of your argument so that I can knock it down. So think of like a straw man. It's like a man made out of straw. It's easy to knock down. So it's basically like, I'm gonna simplify your argument so that it's easier to do. So they show this commercial by the WHO where they say WHO works closely with countries to make sure that vaccines can do what they do best, prevent diseases without risks. So first of all, that's an oversimplification because it's from a commercial, and maybe they are being too. They're making it sound too safe compared to what it really is. But I just want to be clear. They don't say vaccines don't have risks. They say like we work with countries to make sure to try to, the wording is a little, it's like a positive spin on it because it's a commercial. But I want to they're not exactly claiming there's no risk. They're saying it'd be kind of like if a car company said we do safety testing to try to make sure that our cars have no risks. That doesn't mean they're saying the cars are 100% safe. It means that they do testing to try to make it as close to that as possible. But it does say what they do, but you could interpret that way if you wanted to, okay? But that's from one commercial, from one lady. So then they argue against that one clip from that one commercial and keep saying, I thought you said vaccines have no risks whatsoever. You said there's no risks to vaccines. But if you go look at the WHO's own website, they admit that vaccines have risks. Who does not actually make the claim? If you that's not their state, that's not their position on it. Their real actual position is not necessarily the one little tidbit they pulled from one commercial. So if we look here, are vaccines safe? First of all, they do claim that vaccines are widely safe. That is their claim. But they say, are there side effects? Like any medicine, vaccines can cause mild side effects such as a low-grade fever or pain or redness at the injection site. Mild reactions go away within a few days on their own. So they admit that they're not saying there's no risk. They're saying there are risks of these mild side effects. And then they say, and they're putting a spin on it, I will admit, but they're not saying they're 100% safe and there's no risk whatsoever. Severe or long-lasting side effects are extremely rare, which is a polite way of saying they do exist, okay? But they are trying to downplay those risks, but they're admitting they exist. Vaccines are continually monitored for safety to detect rare adverse effects. So whose position, and you could argue against that position, and maybe it's wrong. Their position is vaccines are overall very, very safe. There may be mild symptoms, or in extremely rare cases, there may be extreme side effects from them, or severe side effects. That is an argument. You could argue against that and use data to argue against that. That's not what the video does, though. Instead, the video takes the simplified, much dumbed down version from the commercial, and they keep arguing against that. And that's called a straw man argument. So instead of arguing against the actual position, they're going to argue against a way weaker version of the argument. And so it's going to make them sound a lot smarter because they keep saying, oh, you said vaccines have no risks at all, which is an easier argument to make then. But you said that vaccines have rare severe side effects, right? Okay. The other time they do this a lot is in an interview, or sorry, not in an interview, in a meeting with the CDC. And I have the times here so you can go watch them for yourself and dive into it a little deeper. In the interviews with the CDC, they ask, or somebody asks, and they're talking about using multiple vaccines at the same time, and is it safe? Is there any comment on using this vaccine, he uses the phrase this vaccine, at the same time as other adjuvanted vaccines, meaning vaccines that have other different additives? Like, have we studied to see if combining these different vaccines, even if they're safe on their own, could be harmful when they're combined, that there could be some unexpected reactions when they're combined? The lady says, we have no data to make a recommendation one way or the other. Okay. And then, so basically they say, have you studied this vaccine to see how it interacts with other ones? And they basically say, no, we haven't, but widely we know that combining vaccines is safe from other studies that have been done. Okay. And they don't, like, it jumps around in the clips and stuff, so you'd have to go in and inspect it a little more and see exactly what they said. But then they cut back to the people on the show, okay, the main people. And she says, when asked if there had ever been safety studies using multiple vaccines in combination, they said no. And then they keep going back to this over and over and over. No studies have ever been done on multiple vaccines. They have never seen if multiple vaccines are safe. They have never studied it. There's no data. And they repeat that over and over and over again. She doesn't say that. The question was, is there any comment on using this vaccine? They take a question about one specific situation and then they apply it to a really broad set of circumstances, and they use it to create an easier argument to make. And that's one that she says, hearing that totally blew me away. And I thought, that blows me away too. I was with her. I said, they've never done studies on multiple vaccines. That blows me away. I'm speechless, which is what she said. She said, I'm speechless. And then, which I'm surprised she didn't do this, because her whole thing is vaccines. I said, that's hard to believe. I want to see if that's true, because if that is true, wow, I am speechless. And I went and I researched it. And there were tons of studies on multiple vaccines and their safety. I mean, just a bunch. And they were easy to find. They were not hard to find at all. And I'm kind of surprised that this lady says, wow, I am shocked. I'm speechless. I'm blown away that that's never been done. And then she never went and double checked it. So you either have to believe that she never thought to check that one person's statement from one meeting, or you have to believe that she did check it and she found out it was wrong, and that she purposely didn't tell you that because she only wanted you to see that one little thing that supported her argument. There's maybe a chance that they just forgot to look it up. I think that is really dishonest. And I think I think it's obviously dishonest. Like, I think that's simple. So they keep making the claim over and over. No, she said that no studies have ever been done on multiple vaccines. First of all, that's not what they said, because they were referring to a more specific situation. But second of all, they could have checked that more broadly, and it was really easy to find that it wasn't true. And so that just it makes it hard to believe the other things they say, when I know that they're being misleading with this one piece of information, and they're not presenting all the information. All right. He says this thing about meth and cocaine and heroin. I'm not going to go into it. I would challenge you to read what he said and the comparison he makes and decide for yourself if that is a reasonable and fair comparison, or if it's trying to just play to your emotions and get you to jump to that. Okay. So those are the strategies I saw. And I want to reiterate, none of that means that it was bad information. I can say I'm telling you the truth and then tell you the truth. I can use really emotional tactics and then tell you the truth. I can tell you the truth and not tell you my sources. I can tell you the truth and give you statistics that are true without giving you the broader context. So even though they used all of those strategies, it doesn't mean they're not telling the truth. They could still be telling the truth, but they're just approaching it with a specific aim, and they're really just trying to make their claim, even though it might be true. So this is the only thing I'm going to jump into where I actually said, okay, now I know they're using all these tactics, these strategies. But I need to actually look at some of this information and see if it's true, because that's really what it comes down to. It's not about the strategies they use. It's not about, who said what. It's about the actual information. And this is the last thing I'm going to cover, and then you can stop listening to me rant. Okay, and this actually surprised me. I knew that they would make claims that vaccines are dangerous and they have dangerous side effects, which, by the way, scientists agree with, and scientists study and try and make vaccines safer. There's no censorship of people studying vaccine safety. There's only censorship of people that are using misinformation to do that. Okay, because there's lots of scientists that publish all sorts of medical studies all over the place about the risks of vaccines. They just use the actual numbers instead of hyping them up and using bad information. This was surprised me. I did not expect them to downplay the risks of these diseases, though I guess in hindsight I should have, because that would be an easy way to convince people that vaccines are bad, is not just to play up the risk, but also to downplay the benefits. I never expected them to be pro-disease, pro-measles, pro-mumps, pro-chickenpox. That I was surprised. Okay. Let's jump to 2740. Or actually, I'm going to do this other one first. I'm going to do 40 minutes because I want to end on that guy because he's my favorite, the other one. Okay. $40.08. Here we go.
This mass psychosis, where we have accepted this Satan's bargain of trading a few harmless, self-limiting childhood rashes.
All right, so he calls them harmless. That word means something, by the way. It means no harm. It means doesn't cause harm, doesn't hurt, isn't bad. I mean, harmless means not bad. Harmless means safe, right? I mean, it means without harm. So a harmless rash is what he calls it.
Measles. I'm a measles survivor. Thank God. Chicken pox. Everybody got it. Mumps, rubella. Nobody cares.
Okay. He says everybody got it. Nobody cares. And he survived it. So here's my challenge. I challenge you to find one person who's been killed in a car crash to tell you about it. I challenge you to find one person who died of cancer to tell you about it. I challenge you to find one person who drowned to tell you about it. I challenge you to find one person who died from suicide to tell you about it. I challenge you to find one person who's died in a plane crash to tell you about it. This is a bias, and by bias it just means like a way of thinking, called survivorship bias. You only get the perspective of survivors, and that could be of anything, of diseases, of war, of terrorism. You know what I mean? You only hear from the people that survived it, because by definition, the people that don't survive aren't there to tell their story. So the people that probably be the most anti-war aren't here to tell us, hey, don't go to war because it killed me and it's bad. We only hear from the people that survived, right? When he says we all had chicken pox, you're looking around at the people around you going, yeah, all the people around me had chicken pox and we're fine. Because the people who died aren't there to say, well, yeah, but not me. So yes, 100% of adults survived their childhood illnesses. That doesn't mean that those childhood illnesses are no big deal. It's just a basic mental error. It's a math error. It's a bias just by definition of the situation. So I just want to say he's making a claim that these are safe. And his reason that they're safe is because he survived it and everybody else survived it. Because the people that died aren't there to raise their hand and say, yeah, but not me. So it's just a mathematical mental error that's made. Okay. Now he might be right that it might be safe, but we're going to have to look at that a little more. But but his argument, because everybody says that, well, we all had this when we were kids and we were fine. Yeah, because all the kids that died are dead. All right, so that's called survivorship bias. The other one, and we'll end on this, and I'll shut up, and you can go back to enjoying your day. Is my favorite guy again, Dell, because he's really the one who really pumps up like the not. He just doesn't say these diseases aren't a big deal. He's saying that they're good.
By simply letting a child get the measles. Those are the discussions we should be having. And so when we talk about trivial childhood illness, it's not only...
And he creates this phrase, trivial childhood illness, which is funny because it's so literally a way to try and trivialize childhood illness, which is a weird thing to minimize for me. You know what I mean? And I think he has to do it because he knows that people naturally don't like when kids get sick and don't like when kids die and have to go to the hospital. So he calls it a trivial childhood illness. He creates a new name for this group of illnesses, which maybe is just every illness a kid could have. I guess I'm not sure what makes it trivial or not.
Taking vaccines, they're toxic, incredible.
He uses toxic, which that's just like that's like the word natural. You can just say anything's toxic that you want. These things don't come in a label that says toxic, like an industrial chemical would. He decided to call them toxic.
Toxic for a trivial childhood illness like measles or chicken pox or rotavirus or things like this that really don't kill people living in a modern country like we live in.
All right, he says they really don't kill people living in a modern country that we live in. So that's his claim. This is the big claim. These diseases are, like, even if all the stuff we're saying about vaccines are bad isn't true, they're just unnecessary because these diseases aren't a big deal. And here's the thing. This is another thing that I didn't know. I didn't know how bad measles is. So I said, well, I better, I guess, look up, because if he's right, if measles isn't that deadly, then he's right. We don't need these vaccines. If it's like that safe, if it's just a trivial illness, if it's just a rash, a natural rash, I mean, big deal, big whoop. Why do we need vaccines for it? So I thought, well, let's go look this up and see if that's true. If they're just no big deal. By the way, I will say he claims it's because we live in a modern country like ours, we don't need to worry about it. That might be because we don't get it because we have vaccines. I'm just saying, like, that's a possibility. And the fact that vaccines have stopped these illnesses might be what's making us think they're not a big deal because we're not seeing them anymore. Okay. But anyway, so I guess that was my question. Like, is measles a big deal? Because that's his claim. Measles is trivial. That's his word that he uses, trivial. And I want to know, is measles trivial? So I went and searched it. So I'm going to go to some links that I went to. And by the way, if you want to go find links about measles, there's not a shortage at all. And so I started with Fox News. And Fox had a story. Madagascar measles epidemic kills over 1,200 people. So, and this is not from a modern country like us. This is in a really poor country. Okay. But Fox News says that Madagascar is currently facing the largest measles outbreak, over 115,000. Only 58% of people have been vaccinated. More than 1,200 people have died in 7 months, which means if we were to keep at that rate for a year, you'd have almost, like 2,000 people at least. Okay, that's one country in one place. Death toll from measles outbreak in Congo hit 6,000. Wow, that seems really high. Okay, so in some places, and by the way, it says, why did it kill 6,000 people? Why did it kill so many people? I mean, maybe just because they don't have the healthcare they need for it. But maybe it's because they're not vaccinated against it. Okay, but it certainly, in some contexts, is not trivial. It can kill you, at least, and maybe if you don't have good healthcare, it can kill you. So then I wanted to know, okay, well, yeah, but we're not in the Congo, what about like in the United States? Okay. Anyway, okay. The other thing is, I do wonder, like, when this guy says measles is no big deal, maybe that is going to affect how they view vaccinations in Congo. So maybe somebody in Congo gets on YouTube and sees this guy and says, I'm not going to vaccinate my kid against measles. I mean, vaccines are dangerous, and measles is a trivial disease. And you end up with 6,000 kids dead in the Congo. Okay. This is worldwide for 2019. More than 140,000 die in measles. Surge. So I'm kind of starting to think maybe when he said it's a trivial disease that he was not being upfront about the risk. I think maybe he was trivializing it when he called it trivial. Okay. Most deaths were among children under 5 years of age. By the way, now I'm using a trick. I'm using emotions because I know that if you hear kids under 5, you might, babies and very young children, that. So I guess I'm using that strategy now of trying to go to the emotional aspect. Okay, but I said, okay, but I want to know in the United States. Okay, what is that? In 1912, this is in the United States, by the way, not in the Congo, not anywhere else. Measles became a nationally notifiable disease, requiring U.S. healthcare providers and laboratories to report all diagnosed cases. In the first decade of reporting, an average of 6,000 measles-related deaths. 6,000 deaths per year. 6,000 deaths per year. But that's 1912. That's before really modern medicine. Though I would say when it comes to now we could treat those through hospitalization. So it's to call it trivial. If you're saying, well, it's trivial because we can put you in the hospital to save you. Is it that trivial that we have? Well, it's trivial because we could hospitalize you to give you medical care to treat it. It doesn't seem like going to the hospital doesn't seem trivial. Okay, here we go. This is more modern, the 50s. Definitely not now, but I mean, not like lacking clean water and infrastructure and medical care. In the decade before 1963, so that would be probably 1953 to 1963, nearly all children got measles by the time they were 15 years of age. It is estimated 3 to 4 million people were infected each year, just like that guy said in his video, like, I had measles, everybody had measles, right? That's true. Also, each year among reported cases, an estimated 400 to 500 people died. So even in the United States, and this is not like, the 1800s. It's with hospitals, with doctors, with medicine, with nurses. Every year, 400 to 500 people died, which would probably still be children under 5 and young children and babies. 48,000 were hospitalized. So here's my thing. Even if we have medical care that can care for it, it required hospitalization, which is not minor, especially now with how much hospitals cost. 1,000 suffered encephalitis, swelling of the brain, which will kill you from measles. So this is before vaccines started. Okay. And then you can go on and read, but what happens when we get vaccines and start vaccinating people? That plummets. It plummets way down. So his claim, I don't know why he says, like, being modern doesn't change your DNA. Being wealthy doesn't change your DNA. Like, in a rich, developed country, if you get measles, you will still get sick. Now, maybe instead of 400, I don't know, maybe it'll be 300 instead of 400. Maybe it'll be 200. But this hospitalization, I don't think that goes down. If you require medical treatment to treat it, maybe we can treat you better, but I don't see how that's going to go down. So I don't think calling it trivial, going to the hospital doesn't seem trivial. And a small number of children dying doesn't seem trivial. So I think maybe the numbers are there to say, well, it's not trivial, but the risks still outweigh. But that's not what he said. He said it's trivial. He said it's no big deal. He said it's good that you're supposed to get measles. He didn't show us any data to support that. And when I looked for studies, they said the opposite. But I mean, I don't know because I'm not an expert on it. So here's, I guess, my thing. I don't know about vaccines. I really don't. I didn't study it. I'm not an expert. But neither are a lot of these people. They are authors and activists and a website designer and a TV producer. They're just like me. They just went on the internet and looked around. So as someone who's not an expert, what I'm looking for is just somebody that seems honest with what they're saying. These videos seem very dishonest. They seem dishonest from the get-go because they say that they're going to present both sides when they are presenting a clear side, which is okay, but they didn't tell me that from the start. They're being dishonest in the way that they're trying to kind of use my emotions to get me to be more open-minded rather than have me really think critically. They're being really, really dishonest. Not dishonest, but they're not showing me the full picture because they don't tell me the data and the sources. When they use numbers and statistics, they don't actually give me the context to understand them. They kind of frame this information in a way that I felt was very misleading, as far as like, they said vaccines have no risk. I don't feel like that was a fair claim to argue against. And so I feel like they took it and twisted it to what they wanted it to mean instead of actually what it really was saying. And then finally, this information right here is what, because all of that you might say, well, but they might still be right. They just have an agenda, but they're still telling the truth, or they're still sharing good information. This stuff, I cannot get behind this. I cannot get behind measles is trivial and good and everybody had it and it's no big deal, because it kills people all around the world. Before the vaccine, it killed people here. It hospitalized tens of thousands of people here. That's not trivial. And to say, well, everybody had it and survived. No, not everybody survived. A lot of people didn't survive. They're just not here to raise their hand and say, well, what about me? So we have that big bias. So that's only one little piece. And I'm sure there's been 1,000 little pieces of information, just pop, 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 pop. And I think it's like rapid fire. They're trying to put out that information faster than you can analyze it, faster than you can double check it, faster than you can think about it. But why am I going to trust what else they say? If this was just basically, I think, BS when I went and looked at it, Del Goodtree, or Del, what's his name? I will not believe anything this guy says, because he even came up with a word to trivialize childhood illnesses that cause death around the world. He called them trivial childhood illnesses. If he has good information, he wasn't willing to provide me the actual sources of it. I don't trust this guy. And not just because I, at the beginning, said, I'm not going to trust this dude. Who's he? Some dumb TV producer? No, I was willing to go double check what he said, because I thought, well, maybe it actually is true. I'm not going to believe another thing this guy says. He could tell me the sky is blue. I'd go double check it to make sure. I'm not going to believe anything he says without double checking. And same with a lot of the other claims. These, like the way they're twisting things, I don't think they're being honest. I think they're manipulating people, because once again, they're selling a product, which, by the way, I better buy soon, because the sale's going to end in like 2 hours. The countdown's running. It's going. The clock's going down. Boom, 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 60%. It's like being in the slot machine in Vegas, big numbers and flashing signs. I think they're selling a product. You'd be less likely to buy it if they were being totally upfront and honest with you. And the best way for them to sell it is to fudge the numbers and play with your emotions. So anyway, I love you. That's my thought on this. I think it's kind of BS. And more importantly, I think it's obvious BS if you take a step back, because the way they're doing the information, they know how people think. They know how I think. They know that I'm going to get sucked into this and go, oh, wow, that's crazy. Oh, wow, that's crazy. And they're just going to spit it at me too fast for me to really think it through and step back. Step back, look at the strategies they use, and are those strategies somebody's using when they're trying to be upfront and totally honest? Or are they trying to paint a very one-sided picture? Anyway, I love you. I hope you're doing good. I'll share this document with you, and I added some good, just 2 short videos. One's from the WHO, and another big thing they talk about is how there's no safety testing or no whatever. This goes into what the process is for testing. By the way, this video right here does not tell you its sources. I would double check them to see if they're actually telling the truth. This one down here, they do give you all the sources. So you could go double check those and make sure they're telling the truth. And this one's a really good overview of just how vaccines work and balancing the risks and benefits and stuff. But anyway, I love you and I hope you're doing good. Hopefully we get to see you sometime real soon. Catch you later.